The White House is calling it a short-term disruption. Consumer prices jumping 3.3% last month compared to a year ago, the biggest spike in almost 2 years. That's down from a peak of more than 9% inflation in the Biden era that you can see on this chart. We've made a lot of progress, obviously, since then, but this is the first report that we're seeing, and you can see the uptick there at the end of the chart in red. That's the Trump era in the newest Trump administration, up 3.3%, shows you some of the impact of rising gas prices, energy prices across the board during Operation Epic Fury. Let's take a look at live West Texas intermediate crude prices right now, down $2.95 and change. So some positive movement in the crude oil prices today at the pump. The national average for regular $4.15, up more than $1 since Epic Fury began. You've heard the president say that he thought it could have gone even higher during this stage of the war. We'll see where it heads from here. Let's bring in White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. Kevin, good to have you here.
Yeah,
I know the White House, good afternoon. The White House has basically asked for people's patience on this and said that as soon as they get the Strait open, you're going to see these prices drop dramatically. What is your take on when that will be? How much patience are you asking the American people for in this process?
Right. Well, first of all, on the energy story, you got it exactly right. Those are the things to look at. Gas prices are unacceptably high right now, but it's a very temporary phenomenon. We're already seeing more ships start to come through the straits. And of course, America itself is energy independent. And so the disruption, as bad as it is at the gasoline pump here in the U.S., is way worse in other countries. And it's very, very urgent that the talks this weekend be successful with J.D. Vance and the Iranians. But the good news in today's report was that core inflation, that's everything else, dropped all the way down to 0.2. If you look at the 6-month moving average of that, then core inflation right now is lower than it's been since the start of the Biden inflation, which means that this hopefully temporary spike in energy prices isn't feeding through to other things. And there's a lot of good news, especially in groceries. Egg prices are down to about the lowest level they've been in years. Beef prices dropped a heck of a lot because President Trump allowed more Argentine beef into the country. And even ticket prices dropped an enormous amount because of the actions we took against Ticketmaster. And so I think that the inflation story is disappointing with energy, but actually promising everywhere else.
All right, let's get to a few more elements of what's going on here. I thought it was interesting that Keir Starmer says that he is fed up with the impact on energy prices in his country. Watch this.
The impact on our economy, particularly on energy, is already clear to see. I'm fed up with the fact that families across the country see their bills go up and down on energy, businesses' bills go up and down on energy because of the actions of Putin or Trump across the world.
Pretty rich, considering the fact that a lot of the European and Western European countries get their oil from the Strait in ways that we don't. What's your reaction to what the UK Prime Minister said there, Kevin?
You know, I think that the biggest irony for me is that the UK is awash in oil. The North Sea is one of the richest oil reserves on Earth, but the far left in the UK basically shut down the UK's oil wells. And it's an actual interesting thing to think about. In the US, because we are the largest producer of oil on Earth, then the GDP effect is very muted for this short-term disruption, whereas it's really large in the UK. So the UK wouldn't be doing so poorly if they had just allowed themselves to continue to drill the North Sea. And what's the richest country? It's Norway, which is basally going to the same place that the UK
I want to give you a chance to respond to this, because you said that you still think that there's going to be a golden age of growth, up 4.5% to 5%, despite what's going on in Iran. Here's Paul Krugman, who everybody knows, former New York Times columnist, responding to that. Watch.
And 4 to 5% growth, my God, we haven't had that in generations. With, a shrinking native-born labor force and immigration having brought to a standstill, there's just no way that that's a number that makes any sense. So this is just pure fluffery. I'm a little surprised. Why would Hassett stick his neck out like that?
He said there wasn't a single word of truth in your statement, Kevin. What's your response?
You know, I'm very much reminded, you might recall that in 2017, when the president and I worked together to design policies that delivered 3% growth, I came out on these shows and said, we're going to have 3% growth, and Paul Krugman said exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
The thing that's different now is that we've already got a record of achieving that 3% growth with previous policies, and we've got new policies on top of those that are going to add even more growth. And so, of course, we're going to get 4.5% growth this year and next, because
I hope you're right about it. He's a Debbie Downer always, and I remember he said that the Trump re-election was going to absolutely crash the stock market. Every single across the board company would just flatline, which of course didn't happen either. I'm not really sure why people have him on their shows, but I did want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Thank you.
I want to ask you about this Anthropic story, though, because they have this new AI model that is putting a bit of a fear of God into folks when it comes to what it's capable of. And this is from Bloomberg, and it talks about the Anthropic model scare sparking an urgent meeting between Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, and Jerome Powell, warning bank CEOs across the country, I should say. It says the previously unreported meeting, arranged on short notice, is another sign that regulators consider the possibility of a new breed of cyber attacks one of the biggest risks that faces the financial industry. And of course, if that's true, it faces the entire country. What are we doing about this, Kevin?
Right. Well, first of all, those bankers were in town for meetings that day. And it was appropriate that Secretary Bessent do what he did. He brought them over to the Treasury along with Jay Powell and went through the cyber risks to make sure that they were aware of them. But we're taking every step we can to make sure that everybody's safe from these potential risks, including Anthropic agreeing to hold back the public release of the model until our officials have figured everything out.
You know, I mean, you're saying it was a routine meeting that was already planned, but is there a sense of urgency around this from the White House? Is there concern?
Absolutely. There's definitely a sense of urgency. It's something that is relatively new. The AI has developed a way to find, basically hacks in other software. And it can be a really, really good thing, because as long as the AI isn't released to the public, if it's given to law enforcement officials and our banks and so on, then they can harden their software and make it even better than it ever was before. And that's what we're trying right now to focus on, so that we are as secure as we've ever been.
Well, it's kind of chilling when you hear these companies that developed these technologies express fear that they're not sure that this thing unleashed is something that they can control. So this is a huge issue, and thank you for addressing it. We'll dig into it more next time. Kevin Hassett, thank you very much from the White House. Yeah, you too. Thank you, sir.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.